Andrew, I'm not kidding. Like, it's actually quite perfect that you've written a book on finding God in the midst of evil as we watch this Met Gala take place. And the reason they've decided to go hyper pandering, it's the all black Met Gala. It's not only blacks who are going, but it's a pandering to black dandyism and the culture of black fashion, starting back with certain slaves all the way up to modern day. Anna Wintour So White, and her partner, who's like organizing this whole thing with her, also a white guy, decided that they realized they would take a hit if they just tried to plan this. So they brought in, it feels very much like black tokenism to me, like a focus group of black fashion elites, allegedly, and also just well-known black people like Angel Reese of the WNBA to like give them the imprint of approval. And some of these folks had like meetings at the Apollo Theater. The New York Times wants us to know they went to the Apollo Theater to plan tonight's Met Gala, historic theater in Harlem, as they tried to pay homage to black fashion because, I will submit to you, and then you take it, they have been embarrassed by the year after year after year press coverage of how disgustingly excessive and over the top this showing of wealth is, where the plates go for over $70,000 a ticket. And you've got morons, literally, like the Kardashians and Diddy inside the Met Gala. I witnessed with my own eyes dry humping in the bathrooms, smoking in the Met Gala bathrooms with cigarettes. Another very famous pair from Wall Street snorting coke, which my husband Doug saw with his own eyes in the men's room, and making a mockery of this place, which is supposed to house some of our greatest works of art. So now they've decided to try to get over this reputation of Anna Wintour being America's biggest snob, and this thing being the most over-the-top, elitist, evil event by pandering to blacks. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, I do want to say, Megyn, first, thanks for having me on, but also I do want to say that you have picked the person who may care about the Met Gala least in America. I think there may be people who can't see, possibly, who care about it less. But
this is why you're perfect for it.
This is why I'm perfect for it. I know. I thought it was kind of hilarious that they were going to highlight black fashion. I'm not even sure what black fashion is, to be honest with you. I would have liked it if they have highlighted white fashion. It would have been at least a little different. It's really fascinating to watch a failed elite who has now been rejected by the American public in the last election, basically declared irrelevant, fighting very hard to remain at the top by doing the same things they've been doing for the last 30 years. It's so out of date, it's so old-fashioned, and it's so untoward for this absolute display of pure privilege and wealth to condescend to recognize that some people who wear clothing happen to be black. And when you talk about the Met, it is a world-class museum. It was one of the greatest museums in the world. And to have these people parading through and displaying as really a fashion accessory, they're caring for minorities, they're caring for the poor, they're caring for whatever they're pretending to be caring about, when instead they could just be showing off the fact that they have enough money to be beautiful. And I think most of us would like to see that. Most of us like to see beautiful people being beautiful. Why we have to see beautiful people being virtuous is just escapes me entirely. I think it really is fascinating that the people who just were rebuked by the American public in a very big way are clinging to what they've been doing all this time. There's absolutely no taking stock, absolutely no looking in the mirror, no thinking, maybe we did overdo it, maybe we've gone down a wrong path, maybe we are wrong. They can't do any of that because their entire power structure is built on exactly this, on displays of virtue. And I think that I would find it sad if I didn't find it so hilarious to watch them kind of slowly swirling down the drain. I think they're going exactly where they should go, and I think it's going to continue because, I mean, people are sick of it. I've always wanted to write an article that I've never gotten around to called "Netflix Made Me a Bigot" by sequestering black work on like a Black Lives Matter ban.
For like a year. For like a year. Every time you turn on Netflix, all you'd get is like black directors, black actors, black film. It's like, oh my God, what happened?
And I would sit there and go, I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going to click on this and encourage them. And then I'd notice, of course, that some of my favorite actors, Denzel Washington was shuttled into that place. It is like when you go to a bookstore and try to find a copy of an American classic, Invisible Man, written by a black guy, and it's in black literature. It is the most alienating, divisive, bigoted thing you could possibly do. And they do it again and again and again. And it just shows that they don't know any of the people who are being excluded by it, the actual black people who are being excluded by it. And your description of what's going on in the men's and ladies' room, which I had no idea, sounded a lot more... I witnessed it. It sounds more interesting than the show itself. I'm sorry.
But it's like, but the disgusting debauchery, truly, of like, have some respect, you absolute cultural lowlifes. You got in here because Anna Wintour thought somebody might click to see your half-naked body on her red carpet. But have some respect for the actual great works of art that are in this place. You don't understand true beauty and true culture. Like, they only understand it through their Kardashian lens. It's absolutely disgusting. Here's the thing. Here's what they're saying about tonight's gala. Okay, they're calling it Superfine, Tailoring Black Style, which the museum says is a cultural and historical examination of Black style over 300 years through the concept of dandyism. The Met show tonight, for the first time, is entirely devoted to designers of color. As the New York Times puts it, focuses on the way black men have used fashion as a tool of self-actualization, revolution, and subversion throughout American history and the black diaspora. According to the Met's website, the exhibition is sponsored by Louis Vuitton, Instagram, and some others, including Condé Nast, Anna Wintour's owner, the owner of Vogue, not her owner, the owner of her magazine. The New York Times says the show, the culmination of 5 years of work by Andrew Bolton, the Costume Institute's curator in charge, to diversify the department's holdings. He's white, by the way. So is Anna. That's why they had to have their first ever host committee since 2019, at least, including many black people like Simone Biles, Spike Lee, Tanya Lewis Lee, Janelle Monáe, Angel Reese, as I mentioned, and Usher. And then the co-chairs of the gala are ASAP Rocky, Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton, and Pharrell Williams. The honorary chair is, of course, LeBron James, who we all look to as a fashion icon. This is, to your point about like not like taking some of our, great authors and putting them into the black author section. I was at an event one time and the interviewer, which she didn't mean to do me any disrespect, but she was talking about my success in the cable news world. And she said, you were one of the highest paid women in all of journalism. And I said, you don't have to say woman. And it was true. I wasn't trying to toot my own horn on my salary, but it diminished it. It was like when I was at the peak of cable, no, there were actually maybe two people in the industry making more than me, and they were men. But the point is simply, don't separate me out based on my lady parts. It diminishes me. And my whole goal is to get to the top, period, not just top of the people who have vaginas. That is not what I want. And I'm going to guess that my black counterparts in fashion would really not like to have that same asterisk behind their designs or be patted on the head like a pet by Anna Wintour.
Yeah, the first female to do something is in fact an insult in its way. But isn't that kind of the point? Every movement in America gets taken over by the left. This is one of the things I blame the right for, that we have no cultural acuity. We have no culture. We're not nimble in the culture like the left is. So, feminism raised some really interesting issues, really important issues, but now it's just leftism in a skirt. The idea that people shouldn't be racist, great idea, but now even that is simply racism, is simply socialism with a black face. Everything they do simply becomes leftism in disguise. And so the division is actually the point, the idea that your identity, you have to congratulate them on this, because the left who could have predicted that the left would be able to make the love between men and women problematical? I mean, more problematical than it just naturally is. I mean, we all, obviously, sex and romance are places where we all have problems, but they've actually made it unappealing. People have stopped having babies. People don't get married in time to have babies. People have to, write these long things before they can just say, I would like a guy in my life, or I would like a girl in my life, to be different than me and to build a family with and all that. They've made all of that problematical, and as a result, the human race is actually dying out. So congratulations to the left. But all of this stuff is the point. All of this stuff is the point. The point is never, hey, let's be colorblind so that we all treat each other equally. I think we'd all sign on to that. The point is not like, let judge people on their abilities and their talents and not on their sex or their race or anything. We'd all sign on to that. But it always turns into the most divisive possible thing. So you start out saying, can we tolerate gay people? Absolutely. Let's tolerate gay people. It ends up saying, we have to teach your children, we have to show your children homosexual porn. It's always pushed to the absolute level of social dissolution, because I think the social dissolution is the point. In museums all around the West, Megyn, all around the West, there are attacks on the very Western culture that made those museums possible. This is happening everywhere. You can walk into almost any museum and you will see something about white privilege or, Western colonialism, instead of look at this beauty this culture has produced. So the culture throughout the West has been polluted by this stuff. And it's one thing to attack it, which I love doing, and I think we should attack it endlessly. But I also think people of traditional beliefs, people of Christian religious beliefs, people of patriotic beliefs also have to start making culture. We have to start making something that looks beautiful so that people say, oh, I get it. This is actually better than what these people, better than a banana taped to the wall.
This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.